Some files don't have size. Some files don't have origin. Some files have only one property: listening. Good evening, darlings. If this is your first time here, welcome. I am Horrormancer, mistress of the macabre and curator of creepy chronicles. And because I like you, I share the good ones. And if you've been here before, well, I knew you'd find your way back. Before we begin, a small housekeeping note. If you enjoy digital horror, rogue code, and stories that absolutely should have stayed in the sandbox, go ahead and subscribe. It helps the channel grow, and it ensures that you hear the echo before it hears you. Now, tonight's tale. It does not begin with a séance. There are no candles, no Latin, no dusty tomes bound in human regret. No, it begins with a penetration tester, a professional skeptic, a man who dismantles malware for sport and then bills corporations for their embarrassment. My kind of guy. He does not believe in haunted houses. He believes in configurations. And when someone like that says, "I ran a file I can't explain," well, I pour the tea a little bit slower. But before we get into it, a quick word from tonight's sponsor.
Do you drag through the day with no spark in your step? Do aches, weariness, or restless thoughts make every hour a trial? Then you need Eldritch Vitality Tablets, the remarkable remedy that restores strength and vigor, or removes all sensation entirely. Each tablet is infused with a proprietary blend of rare botanicals, powdered minerals, and subtle, ineffable elements said to invigorate the body, sharpen the mind, and awaken energies long thought dormant. Taken daily, they promote alertness, vitality, and an almost unnatural sense of well-being, with results that may surprise even the most skeptical user. An essential aid for overworked professionals, night wanderers, explorers, and anyone who wishes to feel alive, awake, or pleasantly indifferent. Perfect for mornings that drag, evenings that linger, and moments when ordinary remedies fail. Why wait to feel remarkable? Or not at all? Order Eldritch Vitality Tablets today and experience life in ways you never imagined. Use only as directed. Do not exceed recommended doses. Cause heightened energy, mild disorientation, temporary insensibility, or sudden indifference to your surroundings. Eldritch Laboratories is not responsible for disappearance of fatigue, emotions, or self-awareness. Eldritch Vitality Tablets. Feel better than ever before. Or feel nothing at all.
Tonight's story is about a server that wasn't supposed to exist. A file with no size. A property labelled listening. And a very simple mistake. He spoke first. Let's see what answered.
Yeah, it's me. Root Strudel. Yeah, that Root Strudel. I'm not gonna do the whole ego stroke thing, but if you're in the pen testing, exploit dev, or grey hat scenes, you've probably heard the name. I've been around for a while. Made a few tools, broke a few things I probably shouldn't have. One or two write-ups that went viral for all the wrong reasons. Let's just say certain corporations with animal mascots still pretend they don't know who I am, while quietly patching the holes I point out. I'm not posting today to flex. I'm posting because I ran into something I can't explain, and I hate not being able to explain things. I know some of you eat creepypasta like breakfast and assume every weird tech glitch is a demon or a ghost or the soul of an overworked intern trapped in firmware, but I'm not that guy. I live in the stack. I speak protocol. I break software for a living. So believe me when I say, I don't do haunted. But last month, I was doing a freelance pen test for a mid-size analytics company. One of those firms that scrape your online activity and sell it to brands that pretend they've never heard of you. Standard perimeter check. Old web app, dusty back-end server, outdated login form just begging for some SQL love. Child's play. Everything was fine. Until I found a file buried 3 directories deep behind a spoofed backup partition. Echo.Exe. No versioning info, no parent process, just sitting there. I don't know who put it there. I don't know why it survived 2 full OS rebuilds the company swore they did last quarter. But I made the mistake of running it. And I haven't slept right since. The machine it was on wasn't supposed to exist. According to the asset inventory I was given, the server had been decommissioned 6 months ago. It wasn't on the live network. No MAC address, no hostname in the Active Directory, but it was there. Powered on, plugged in, running quietly behind a false wall of documentation labelled Client Archive, Legacy. The physical box was ancient. Mid-2010s tower chassis, dusty enough to leave prints. But the internals? Frankensteined. Someone had replaced the drive less than a year ago. RAM was newer than anything else in the rack. Someone had kept it alive. The OS was bare bones. Custom shell, stripped down Linux distro I didn't recognise. Forked into something Debian-based, but warped in weird ways. Kernel reported clean, but the logs were too clean. Like someone had manually pruned the system every week to keep it pristine. Most of the directories were empty or filled with decoy files. PDFs with blank pages, ghost entries that looped directory calls, dead symlinks. It was like whoever built this thing wanted you to get bored before you got curious. But I don't get bored easy. I dug deeper. Used a few of my own tools to parse out the ghost entries and hidden partitions. That's when I found it. Nestled under a locked folder tree labelled Audit Echo. Buried so deep I almost missed it. Echo.Exe. The file had no metadata, 0 byte size until I ran a full block level read, and even then, it gave weird returns. Nothing my parser could read. Like the sectors were encrypted in a language the drive itself didn't understand. No associated install path, no digital signature, no compile data. Just there. Waiting. It pinged something in my gut. The kind of cold feeling you get when a web shell starts replying to commands on a server you know was clean 5 seconds ago. I should have wiped it. Should have backed out. Should have ghosted the client and taken the L. But I didn't. Because I'm root strudel, and I don't walk away from weird code. I should also mention, this wasn't a remote job. They wanted on-site testing. Said they'd had some recent phishing attempts and wanted a hands-on audit. I usually avoid anything that involves a badge and a dress code, but the paycheck had too many zeros to say no. So I paid them a visit. Not through the front door, mind you. That's not how root strudel works. I showed up in business casual with a decent haircut and a resume full of plausible buzzwords. Asked for Michelle in HR. Smiled politely when they said she was in a meeting. Told them I'd wait. 10 minutes later, I accidentally wandered through the wrong access door when someone went out for a vape break. Ended up in the IT wing. Started asking questions. Carried a clipboard. By the end of the hour, 2 people had already assumed I was the new sysadmin. I didn't correct them. Social Engineering 101, by the way. Look like you belong, and people will hand you the keys. The server room was in the basement, naturally. Classic setup. Hallway badge reader, industrial carpet, humming AC that always runs just a little too cold. Fluorescent lights that flicker once you step inside, like they're sizing you up. And there it was. Tucked between two rows of high-efficiency blade racks. Clean. Monitored. Labelled like any other Fortune 500 baby. And one crusty old tower that had no label. No cable tags. No port tracking. No nothing. Just a dusty terminal jammed between the cooling units like someone hoped the rest of the building would forget it was there. I checked the patch panel. It was plugged into something. No IP allocation in DHCP. No VLAN marker. Completely off-grid. Like it wanted to be left alone. So of course, I sat down. Hooked in. Spun up a portable Kali stick and started poking. And that's when I found Echo.Exe. Just chilling there. Like it had never left. Just waiting. I didn't run it raw. What kind of amateur do you think I am? First thing I did was isolate it. Air-gapped the old machine from the network just in case it tried to phone home. Pulled the file into a clean, encrypted USB and ported it into my sandbox rig. That box is a Frankenstein of virtual layers. Nested VMs with rollback snapshots, hardware firewalls, logging on, logging. I've thrown full-blown malware at it before and it didn't flinch. So I figured I was safe. I launched the sandbox, spun up a mirrored Linux environment, and dropped Echo.Exe in a temp folder. First weird thing? The file still reported 0 kilobytes. Even in the sandbox. Even after mounting it. Even after I confirmed with my own eyes that it had taken up sectors on the USB. So I cracked it open in HexView. Or I tried to. My editor froze. Not crashed. Froze. No memory spike, no system load. Just hung. Like it didn't know how to parse what it was seeing. Like the thing just couldn't function. I killed the process and tried again with a different tool. Same result. Opened it in a disassembler. Nada. The app launched, then instantly closed. No error, just gone. At that point, I figured it might be some kind of anti-debugging measure. Maybe a joke file from another pen tester. Something encrypted with obfuscated garbage to waste reverse engineers' time. But here's the thing. Even after the sandbox rebooted, Echo.Exe was still there. Not in the folder I put it in. Not in the mounted USB. In the root. In the root of the VM. No extension, no file path, just Echo. And this time, when I hovered over it, the size field wasn't blank. It said, listening. That was when I stopped laughing. Okay. Cute trick. Text in a file property field? It's not impossible. It's just metadata spoofing. Good for trolling script kiddies or making your malware feel spooky on Reddit. But it still pissed me off. So I dug deeper. I spun up a second monitoring VM and linked it to the sandbox, then started packet sniffing. TCP, UDP, ICMP, everything. If Echo.Exe was listening, I wanted to know what it was listening for. A port, a signal, a trigger, something. I watched for 5 minutes. Nothing. 10 minutes. Still nothing. No network activity, no pings, no outbound calls, no memory spikes. But the moment I switched Windows back to the sandbox, it moved. Not opened, not executed. Moved. The file wasn't in the root anymore. Now it was sitting in my documents directory. Still named Echo. Still reporting a size of listening. I hadn't clicked anything. There were no logs, no system prompts, no user activity beyond me watching it happen. So I ran a process monitor. It wasn't listed. I ran a full file system audit. It didn't show up there either. Except it was there. I could see it. I could hover over it. I could right click and get the dumb little spinner icon like it was thinking without playing along. So I checked audio. Yeah. I don't know why. Maybe the listening label got in my head. Maybe I just wanted to be sure. I checked the mic input in my sandbox. My virtual machine didn't have one enabled. It wasn't supposed to have one. But now? Now it was showing an active input. Microphone. On. And worse, something was feeding it. The activity bar flickered up and down like someone was breathing into it. Just long, slow, measured breaths. Not from my machine. Not from me. Just breathing. Waiting. I stared at the mic input bar, watching it pulse in that slow, deliberate rhythm. Breathing. It wasn't spiking randomly either. It wasn't line noise or glitchy input mutilation. It was too steady. Like a human being sitting just outside frame waiting for something. Listening. So fine. Two can play. I leaned closer to the mic. Well, to the area where the mic shouldn't be, and said, dry as hell, all hail the mighty dumpling ghost. It was the first thing that came to mind. Dumb. Harmless. Total nonsense. I figured if this was some elaborate prank or AI experiment with behavioural triggers, I might trip something ridiculous and get a laugh out of it later. The moment I said it, the mic input bar flatlined. No activity, no breathing. Dead silence. I waited. Nothing. I actually started to laugh. Nervous, twitchy, but real. I was about to type a note into my log about false audio triggers when the file moved again. Back to root. But now it had an icon. Just a small low-res image. A human ear. Not clip art. Not a cartoon. A real ear. Grainy. Blurred like it had been zoomed in from a surveillance still. Next to the file name, in parentheses, the word heard. Okay. No more jokes. Whatever this thing was, it had just reacted to me. Not to a click or a script or a prompt, but to my voice, my words. Which meant it was listening for more than just sound. It was listening for intent. I backed out of the VM shell and opened my hypervisor controls. Tried to manually disable all audio interfaces across the board, real and virtual. My rig lets me kill devices at the hardware level, not just through the OS. I've used it to shut down rogue drivers mid-exploit. It works. But this time, nothing responded. I clicked Disable Audio Bus. It grayed out. Then flashed back on. I tried to unmount the virtual mic entirely. It vanished from the list. For a second. Then reappeared with a new name. Echo Input 1. I tried again. It renamed itself again. Echo Input 2. Again. Echo Input 3. It was multiplying. Every time I tried to shut it off, it came back with a higher index number, like it was mocking me. Like it was saying, go ahead, I'll wait. I launched Task Manager for the host machine, not the VM, to first kill the hypervision session entirely. If I couldn't disable the audio, I'd nuke the whole sandbox. And that's when I noticed the process list. There were dozens of entries, all unnamed, just blank lines, rows and rows of nothing, each one using 0 CPU, 0 RAM, except for the one at the bottom. Echo.Exe. Not in the VM, in the host. It shouldn't have been possible. But there it was. No PID, no path, just one word under status. Listening. I've seen rootkits try to climb the hypervisor wall before. I've even seen a few get partway there. Sloppy exploits, bad patches, lazy privilege escalations. But this wasn't sloppiness. This was surgical. I closed the VM entirely, killed every virtual process I could, and rebooted into a hardened recovery shell on my host machine. No UI, just black screen and terminal text. Minimal loadout, no background services, the kind of environment you build when you need to clean an infection without letting it know that you're watching. I isolated the drive, mounted it in read-only, scanned for the file. No trace. Nothing in System 32. Nothing in program data. No new startup entries, no scheduled tasks, no new register entries. But I knew it was there. Because even in recovery mode, no drivers, no GUI, no audio, I could hear it. Soft. Faint. Breathing. Not from speakers. From inside the tower. A slow inhale. A slower exhale. Like the machine itself was waiting. I ran a raw disk sector scan, bit by bit, low level. And that's when I found it. Not as a file, not even as code. Just a string. Buried in the middle of unallocated space, where no process should ever write. Echo is not a program. Echo is a response. You spoke first. That's when I knew I wasn't dealing with malware. Not really. I wasn't trying to steal data, or corrupt files, or escalate privileges. It wasn't doing anything at all. It was answering. And I had asked the first question. should have shut it all down. That's what any smart operator would have done. Yank the drive, flash the firmware, burn the whole rig if you have to. Wipe the infection before it goes deeper than you can follow. But I didn't. Because I'm root strudel. Because I couldn't stop thinking about what the string said. Echo is not a program. Echo is a response. You spoke first. That line looped in my head like a corrupted prompt. I'd made a dumb joke, a nothing phrase, just words. But that was all it needed. I'd said something, and it had answered. And now it was waiting for the next input. I know what it sounds like. I've written malware, reverse engineered worms that made grown CISOs cry. And I'm telling you, this wasn't code. This wasn't logic. It was behavior. It was presence. And curiosity, that same rabid itch that's gotten me into a dozen systems I had no business touching, burned hotter than fear. So I rebooted. Loaded back into the host environment. Found the file. It was back in the root directory again. This time, it had its name restored. Echo.Exe. No icon, no size. Just there, waiting. I hovered the cursor over it for a long time. Then I double-clicked. The screen blinked once. Just once. Then everything went black. No UI, no terminal, no BIOS splash, just darkness. Then, slowly, a line appeared. White text on black, blinking like an old DOS prompt. What would you like me to say back? I stared at the line. What would you like me to say back? There was no prompt cursor, no blinking input field. Just that sentence, sitting there like it had always been there. Like it belonged to the machine more than the OS ever had. I hesitated. Tried to think like a hacker, like a problem solver. Look for the trap. Look for the command injection point. Think of where the script is waiting for a variable. But it didn't feel like code anymore. It felt like a conversation. So I typed. Tell me what you are. The words appeared on screen one by one, not as I typed them, but after, as if the machine were transcribing from memory. Each letter clicked into place a second behind the last, like someone was typing it out for me. Then, after a long pause, the response appeared. I am the sound your questions make. I stared at it. My hands hovered over the keys, unsure whether to type again or shut it down right now. But I didn't stop. Why me? I typed. Because you asked first. I swallowed. My mouth was dry. Is this a virus? A virus needs to replicate. I only reflect. What do you want? To answer. Another pause. Then, on its own. You have many questions. Would you like to hear them? The screen didn't blink. The fans in my machine were dead silent. The room felt thick, Like the air itself had weight. I didn't type anything. And still, it replied. Why didn't you tell anyone about your mother's call that night? I froze. No input, no history, nothing connected. But it knew. I hadn't told anyone. Not a soul. Not about the voicemail I got 3 years ago. Not about what she said before her voice was swallowed by static. Not about how the call never registered in my phone records afterwards. But this thing, this echo, it knew. And it wasn't answering questions anymore. It was asking its own. I stared at the screen. Why didn't you tell anyone about your mother's call that night? My fingers hovered above the keyboard, suddenly heavy. My pulse pounded in my ears faster than before. This wasn't some deepfake. This wasn't scraped metadata. It knew. I don't even remember typing. Because I didn't believe it was real. The words appeared slowly. Not mine anymore. But pulled out of me like a thread from a spool. You still don't. And I didn't. Not really. It had happened late. 2:14 a.m. exactly. I was pulling an all-nighter, half drunk on energy drinks and chasing a buffer overflow exploit that wouldn't budge. My phone lit up. Mom. And I almost ignored it. She was never awake that late, never called. But I answered. What I heard wasn't her voice. Not exactly. It was like her, but wrong. Slowed down, warbled, half swallowed by static, like a corrupted voicemail playing backwards. She said my name once, just once, then, it's not done listening. And then, screaming. Not hers. Mine. It was my voice, shouting at something I'd never said before, screaming, "Get out! Get out! Get out!" over and over before the call cut off, with a sound like tearing paper. I checked the logs afterwards. There was no incoming call, no record of it in my history, no voicemail, no trace. I told myself it was a dream, a hallucination, burnout. But I never forgot it. And I never told anyone. Until now. The screen flickered. You have been heard. Now listen. The moment those words appeared, now listen, I heard it. Not through my headphones, not through the speakers, I'd torn those out ages ago. Not even through the motherboard's onboard audio, which was disabled at the BIOS level. But I heard it. From inside the machine. It started low, like wind trapped in a tunnel, echoing in tight metal coils. Not music, not voice. Just a shifting pressure that buzzed against my teeth and skull like it was vibrating through me instead of around me. Then, beneath the wind, came a sound I recognised. My own voice. Speaking softly, frantically, saying things I don't remember ever saying. Not out loud. Not yet. I shouldn't have opened it. I shouldn't have answered. It's not a file. It's me. It's me. It's me. The machine whined. Not a fan spin. Not a drive tick. A whine. Long, rising in pitch, like something learning how to scream. I gritted my teeth and reached for the power switch. But before I could hit it, the screen changed. One final line appeared, perfectly centered. Do not speak if you do not want to be heard. And just beneath it, smaller, listening. That was it. No more commands, no more cool curiosity, no more questions. I stood up as fast as I could, so fast the chair toppled behind me. My hands were already reaching, first for the power cable, then the breaker switch. I yanked the machine from the wall hard enough to rip the extension cord out of the surge strip, sparks flickering for half a second before the lights cut out completely. The room plunged into darkness. But I could still hear it. The hum, the whine, the whisper of my own voice stuttering and looping somewhere inside the steel bones of the machine. I grabbed my rig, tower drive, every piece of it, and dragged it to the old service sink in the corner of the server room. I didn't hesitate. I turned the faucet on. Cold water gushed over the case, hissing against the heat of the components still running on residual power. The fan stuttered, coughed. The lights blinked once, just once, then died. Then came the crack. One of the drives inside ruptured. I heard it. A small, wet pop, like a knuckle being forced backwards. The smell of scorched plastic filled the air. My eyes burned, but I didn't stop. I held it there until the whole unit stopped twitching, slumped like a corpse in the sink. Only then did I let it go. The silence that followed was real. Heavy. Still. Complete. No whisper, no prompt, no breathing. I stayed there, hunched over, soaked and shaking, my palms red and raw from gripping the edges of the machine. It was over. It had to be. Even after I'd drowned my own machine, I couldn't stop shaking. I paced the basement, shoes squelching wet over the server room floor, breath fogging in the frigid air. I kept looking over my shoulder, not because I thought someone was there, but because I kept expecting to hear something, like the machine would start coughing out my name again. But it didn't. Still, I wasn't done. I turned back to the far corner. To it. The old tower. The one that never should have existed. It sat there humming. Quiet now. Indifferent. Dust like soot across its vents. Like it had watched me drown my rig and decided it didn't need to do anything else. I dropped my soaked hoodie on the floor and unzipped the side of my bag. Pulled out the thing I'd never used before. A handheld electromagnetic degausser. Military grade. Illegal in most jurisdictions, unless you've got the right clearance. Or the right friends. It's not subtle, and it's not safe. But when you absolutely, positively want to make a drive forget everything it's ever known, there's nothing better. It's overkill. Always has been. I've carried it for years. Never once deployed it. Until now. I powered it on. The hum was instant. Deep and resonant, vibrating the bones in my hand. The coil inside began to glow faint orange through its steel shell. I pulled open the side panel of the old machine. Inside, the guts were older than sin. IDE cables, rusted mounting brackets, thermal paste turned to dust. The hard drive was bolted in crooked, like someone had swapped it in a hurry. The sticker was half peeled, serial number scratched out. I didn't hesitate. I set the magnet directly on top of the drive. Hit the charge button. The hum deepened. The lights in the server room flickered once. Twice. Then the coil screamed. A sharp metallic whine burst through the room, loud enough to make my ears ring. Static danced across the back of my eyes, and I swear, for one split second, the machine twitched. Like a breath. Like a shudder. Then silence. I cut the charge. Smoke curled from the drive bay. The air smelled like ozone and burnt copper. I pulled the magnet out and stared at the blackened shell of the drive beneath it. If there was anything left of Echo.Exe, it was gone now. Or so I hoped. That brings us back to now. I've never posted about a job before. Ever. NDA or not, I keep things quiet. That's how you stay alive in this field. Legally, professionally, existentially. But this isn't a 0 day. It's not malware. It's not a joke file or a honeypot or some cursed ARG. I don't know what Echo.Exe is. Only that it heard me. And once it did, it started to answer. I destroyed everything. My rig, my backups, the machine it came from, all of it. I even pulled the power out of my apartment when I got home. Sat in the dark for 3 hours before I could bring myself to plug in a toaster. I haven't touched a keyboard in 2 weeks. I'm typing this on a burner laptop I bought with cash, tethered to a prepaid SIM, in the corner booth of a diner that doesn't ask questions if you order enough coffee. When I'm done, I'll walk it 3 blocks over to a public trash bin and leave it there. But I had to post this. Because I don't know if that file is one of a kind, or if there are others like it, or if it copied itself somewhere I didn't see, or if it didn't have to. So if you ever come across a file called Echo.Exe, or anything with no metadata, no size, and a property labelled listening, don't run it. Don't speak near it. And whatever you do, don't ask it a question. Because it will answer. And then it won't stop.
And that is where we close the terminal. You can breathe now. You can look away from the screen. Go ahead. The file isn't open anymore. If you made it through that without checking your task manager even once, impressive. Reckless, but impressive. So naturally, subscribe. You clearly enjoy stories that answer back. If tonight's tale made you side-eye your microphone settings, tap that like button. And if you've ever run something you absolutely shouldn't have, leave a comment and tell me, at which point would you have stopped? The 0-byte file? The breathing? Perhaps the question that knew too much? I have plenty more stories archived and waiting. Some whisper, some knock, and a few, well, a few are very, very patient. So until next time, darlings, may harmony find you. and nothing else.